The Bold Republic Radio Show. I swear I can see the weekend from here. My name's Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me. We're going to head all the way down to Cheyenne, Wyoming, where Boyd Wiggum from Wyoming Liberty Group is sitting patiently by on the phone. Oh, Boyd, how you been?
Oh, I'm doing quite well down here. How are you doing, Glenn?
Very good. Now that we got clobbered one last time by winter just because it wanted to show us who's boss and remind us what's coming next time around, I think we're good after this. I think we ought to, I hope so. I say that, but now that I've said it out loud, Boyd, I've screwed us. We're going to get slammed again. So,
color me skeptical. Yeah. I usually count on at least one storm. Snowstorm in May.
Big in May. Yeah, it's gonna be okay. Well, all right. Now the reason Boyd is on the phone from Wyoming Liberty Group is because he decided just to go ahead and ruin my day. I was having a really good day, and then he sent me an article and. Gee, Boyd, tell everybody what that was all about, because I looked at it and thought, just when you think it can't get any worse.
Well, as the legislature wound down its events earlier this spring, the Management Council, which is the second most powerful group or committee in the legislature, it's made up of legislative leadership and then a handful of other legislators, decided to put the clamps down on the research requests that the remaining members of the legislature posed to the Legislative Service Office.
Okay,
Legislative Service Office is...
First off, for those people listening in other states, we're talking about the Wyoming legislature. And what are the research requests exactly?
Well, this Legislative Service Office is a group of lawyers and other researchers, economists and the like, that try to perform what's called nonpartisan research into issues for legislators. Legislative committees meet throughout the summer and fall and leading up to each legislative session to try to hammer out bills and issues so that they can hit the ground running when the next legislative session start.
Right. And for those people who've never been, it depends on which state you're in as to how it operates. But in the state of Wyoming, you got the House on one side as you walk into the old building, which is being renovated. You have the Senate on the other side of the building. And in the middle is this staff, and they're supposed to be nonpartisan. And when it's requested of them, do some research, we need this information. These folks go off and find the information and do the research for them. Basically, like a massive secretarial staff. Is that about right?
Well, I think it's a little more complex than that because they have to do some analysis. They just don't get to just dig things up and print them off.
Right. Do you understand why I'm skeptical, Boyd? I'm skeptical when they say that they're non-biased or nonpartisan.
Yes, but that's what they were created to be in theory. Okay. So it just to give you an idea. And the thing is this staff, this LSO is what we call it, answers to the Management Council and to the legislature and gets their marching orders. And so these committees, they're going to be doing work. The Management Council has done a few things in their meeting. They decided to crack down on these committees that are maybe trying to go beyond the list of topics that the Management Council told the committees they could look into. Mm-hmm. They are trying. The Management Council wrote a letter dated March 10th that instructed these committee chairmen to carefully monitor the amount of work that that people on the committees are asking the LSO to do.
Right.
And basically what this letter said is you've got 261 staff days to work with throughout the legislature. And as committee chairman, you get to decide whether a request for information from one of your committee members gets passed on to the LSO staff. Mm-hmm. This letter is telling committee chair people that they need to ensure that their committee sticks to the limits of work that they're asking the LSO staff to do.
Sure. Okay.
And the way they do that is by deciding which questions the LSO staff, which questions from members of the legislature, the LSO staff can go try to do the research and find answers to as
Okay.
they prepare to debate and draft bills.
Now, let's be very careful to make sure people understand. The staff that we're talking about, that the legislators rely on, where do they come from? How
Where
are
do
they hired?
They're permanent staff.
Okay.
They are part of the state of Wyoming governmental workforce.
Right.
These are year-round state employees.
Okay, but their qualifications would be what?
Well, several of them are lawyers. I met some who have, they're economists. Maybe there'll be some economists. I don't know what the resume of every member of the staff looks like.
Right.
But they're coming from places like UW.
Well, that was where I was
research.
leading to this, because my impression was, but you're there, correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of these people are young, right out of college. This might be one of their first jobs, and doing some research is not a bad idea. But I also worry that a lot of them might just flat out be young and inexperienced when it comes to researching, or any job for that matter.
Well, I guess some of the folks that work there, it depends on whether I'm young or not.
Yeah.
I'd like to think some of them are young. They're my contemporaries. As I understand it, at least the legal staff at the LSO has seen some turnover recently, but there's several people there that make a career out of doing this. This is just what they do. And these are also the people that draft all the bills that you can look at online.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
Okay,
so
now let's
some
explain,
are young, some are not.
I don't mean to keep interrupting you, but I want to make sure a lot of people don't understand this process, how this works here. So this staff, they're the ones who actually draft a bill. Well, now, Boyd, I was at first when I moved to this state, and a lot of people, again, no matter what state they're listening in, have this idea that, oh, the bill was drafted by your legislator. They're the one who introduced it, so they must be the person who wrote the bill. But that's not necessarily true.
No, the legislator can meet with LSO staff and request a bill, and then the bill comes back to the legislator, and they get to make edits. It's kind of an executive secretarial staff type function there. Ultimately, what the final draft says is the decision of the legislator.
Right.
But there's a process in there. But the most important thing about this staff, and this is why I wrote this blog that's on our website, is that this staff is really the primary source of information, of knowledge that the legislators have, at least in terms of technical information and data. And as we know, knowledge is power.
Right.
We're in an information age, and in an information age, knowledge is power. And this staff is basically the source of knowledge for individual legislators. So the problem here is, on the surface, it seems like a good idea maybe to try to limit the amount of work that is shoved at this office for no other reason than to try to save money, staffing costs, and try to keep the state payroll down.
Right.
But the problem is by so doing, what is actually happening is there's a top-down decision about what information legislators can have available to them as they make policy decisions for the state.
So somebody is editing. This is where we get to the crux of it. Somebody's in charge of editing the information that actually gets to these committees that they make their decisions on.
Worse yet, it's not somebody in charge of editing. Of course, there's somebody in charge of editing.
Right.
The legislative leadership has decided to crack down on committee chair people who are not doing whom they do not think are doing a good enough job of limiting the ability of committee members to request information.
Mm-hmm.
The choke point that this letter and this process that came at the end of this last legislative session is trying to keep a tighter control over even the information that is requested.
Right.
Not the editing of the information coming back, but even the requests for information that are allowed to even be and go to the legislative staff.
In other words, I'm not going to allow you to ask that.
Well, you can ask it, but I'm going to say that no, they're not allowed to spend any time on this.
Right.
And this is a Democratic legislator rightly raised a red flag and pointed out that this, whether intentionally or not, these decisions can actually influence whether minority perspectives or minority concerns can even be brought to light.
Yeah.
If a chairperson says, hey, we don't have enough time that we
well, you can come up with any
information.
excuse, not just enough time there. Where do people find this article, Boyd, that you wrote about this?
This is on our website. It's wyliberty.org.
Right.
It's under the blogs tab. I'm the author.
Okay.
There's a number of ways to get there.
Boyd Wiggum is the name. All right. I got to run here. I got a hard break coming up. Boyd, thanks for coming on and keep us up to date, because it's going to be really interesting to find out if this turns out to be a biased process or not.
We will certainly do that. Thank you.